Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to undergroundwellness.com. If you missed last night's radio show with T.S. Wiley, that was a barn burner of a show. Definitely download it. It's on iTunes. It's on Blog Talk Radio. Check it out. We talked about her book, Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, and Survival. And we talked about one of the most overlooked aspects of health, wellness, and fat loss. And so what we tend to do here when we think about fat loss, we tend to think about just diet and exercise. Diet and exercise, diet and exercise, diet and exercise. And we've also talked recently about how even though our genes haven't really changed, even though we're still really hunter-gatherers genetically, the diet has changed so tremendously. But what about the way that we sleep? I mean, we tend to be up at all hours of the night. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, where we're watching movies, we're just doing stuff. But this is really the first time in history that we really haven't gotten that much sleep. If you consider the light bulb has been around for about, as common as it is, for about 70 years or so. Prior to that, there really was no real artificial light. We really couldn't bring the sun indoors with us. So if you go back in time about, we'll just say 10,000 years, when the sun went down, and actually we don't have to go back 10,000 years, not even that far, but we'll just say that when the sun went down, there was nothing else to do. We may have lit a campfire and hung out for a second, but when the sun went down, we went to bed, and we no longer do that, and it's got some particular consequences and repercussions that are happening today. So check this out. In the winter, the days are short, the nights are long, and we've got a famine going on, right? Now, we're going to skip this part. In the spring and the summer, it's warmer, the days are longer, the nights are shorter, and the food is much more plentiful because of the fact that the trees are fruiting. They're producing their fruit. So there's available carbohydrates there. And also, boom, like I said, we have more carbohydrates as opposed to less carbohydrates in the winter because carbohydrates don't really grow on ice. We got to figure, we went through ice ages, it snowed, it was incredibly freezing. If you've ever tried to grow a garden in the wintertime, you would know that that garden doesn't really grow very well. If there's snow packed on it, it ain't going to happen. And so the food availability was very slim. Now, if you lived back then and it was spring and summer, and you knew that this famine was on its way, you of course would get prepared for that. You would want to fatten up for the winter. That way you can live off of your fat stores. Now, did they just kind of do that by accident, or did they do that intentionally? Well, of course, there had to be some intent to that. They said, hey, famine's coming, we need to start eating, we need to start fattening up. But also, our physiology, I should say, as well as the light and dark cycle and the season, is wired into our physiology, and it kind of does that for us. We'll talk about that right now. So let's check out how this works on a physiological, hormonal level. In the wintertime, it gets dark really early. We all know that. So our ancestors would literally go to bed when it got dark. And of course, we don't do that anymore. Actually, I think that the stat is, even in the 1900s, we slept for 50% of our lives. Now, in 2011, we sleep for about a quarter of our lives. So that's a huge change, and it really screws us up hormonally. So like I said, wintertime, the nights are long, and we're supposed to go to bed earlier. So when we go to bed earlier, we're going to have more melatonin production because that is our sleep hormone. I think everybody out there knows that. Now, melatonin is going to have an influence over prolactin. Prolactin is really important for lactation. It's really important for immunity as well. And if that's working properly, then you're not going to crave carbohydrates. I mean, imagine this. Imagine craving carbohydrates all the way through winter when there's no carbohydrates available. So let me show you what happens in the summertime, and it's only supposed to happen in the summertime, but we're kind of doing it all year round. So in the summer, the days are longer. I absolutely love that, and the nights are shorter. Since the nights are shorter, you're going to get less melatonin production. Now that's going to have an influence on prolactin. When you wake up in the morning in the wintertime, your prolactin is supposed to be all the way down. But when the nights are shorter, you're going to get something called a prolactin spillover. You're still going to be producing it during the day. Now that can be a problem. Now prolactin is going to have an influence over leptin. Now we haven't really spoken much about leptin on my blog nor on my videos, but leptin, what it is kind of like your fat monitor. Your fat cells are really like an endocrine gland. They make leptin. And leptin is the signal that gets sent from your fat stores to your brain, telling your brain what you've got on hand in terms of fat, because it may need that fat if there was a winter famine. And so imagine this, you lose a lot of fat because you're on a low-calorie diet, and what happens is that fat goes down, so you get less of a signal to your brain. The brain goes, whoa, we don't have enough fat stores on hand. Let's make that person crave carbohydrates so they'll eat more, and let's slow down their metabolism. And so that's why a lot of people out there are breaking their diets when they go on low-calorie diets, and that's why you just can't stop eating once you get to a particular point when your fat stores start to get lower. Anyway, we'll talk about that on another day. Now, what happens here is this prolactin spillover is going to suppress leptin. Now, if you're suppressing leptin, you're going to have a problem with your neuropeptide Y, because what leptin does is it presses a button like an off switch on this neuropeptide Y. And why is that important? It's important because neuropeptide Y is responsible for carbohydrate cravings. So if the leptin can't push that off switch, then it's going to stay on all the time. Now, that's what you want in summer, because you want to crave carbohydrates, you want to eat fruit, you want to eat carbs, because that's going to fatten you up for the winter. Now, your neuropeptide Y is still on, and so you're going to crave carbohydrates, just like I said. Now, you're eating all this fruit in summer, you're eating all these carbohydrates and refined stuff that we're eating today, and you're going to get insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance back in Paleolithic times wasn't really a problem. It was actually a survival tactic, because the insulin resistance helped us to pack on fat. And as a matter of fact, the more carbohydrates that we consume, as a lot of you guys know, it's going to help to increase your cholesterol, so the cholesterol goes up. Now, the cholesterol is also a survival tactic, because the cholesterol lowers the freezing temperature of your cells. That way you don't freeze during the winter. So you guys see how obesity and insulin resistance is really just your body trying to survive. It's like survival gone haywire. And so this insulin resistance is going to make you fat, so you can go ahead and live off of your fat stores during the winter famine. Now, what are we doing now? What we've done is, when the sun goes down in the winter time, we turn our lights on. And so we go right back into summer, even though it's winter. It's like we've taken control over the seasons, and what we have is endless summer. Low melatonin, prolactin spillover, suppression of leptin. We can't turn off our neuropeptide Y. We crave more carbohydrates, like we talked with Gary Taubes a few weeks ago on the radio show. And his thing is, okay, calories in, calories out, law of thermodynamics, all fine and good. However, it doesn't address why we overeat. The reason, or one of the reasons why we overeat, especially carbohydrates, is because of this. If you cannot turn off your neuropeptide Y, you're going to keep on eating carbohydrates, you're going to get insulin resistance, you're going to get diabetes, you're going to get heart disease, you might get cancer, and you're also going to get fat, and that's how we live our lives in endless summer. Go to bed. Go to bed on time. In the winter time, get your groove on in the summer. We're still hunter-gatherers. The food has changed, but the light bulb has screwed a lot of stuff up. I'm out of here. Be sure to check out that show. We'll be back next week. I'm out of here. Peace.